The prairie breathed like an old soul, wind carrying whispers of stories long buried in dust. The horizon glowed faintly with the dying light of day. Streaks of crimson and gold stretched across the sky, as if the heavens themselves bled into night. The lonely ranch sat against that endless backdrop, a place built more from grit than from timber, its fences weathered and creaking, its silence the only companion to the man who owned it. Eric was his name, a rancher of 35 years who had grown accustomed to the solitude that followed him like a shadow. His days were simple, his nights quieter still, and in the hollowness of that life, he convinced himself he needed nothing more. But that evening, the stillness broke. Two small figures trudged across the dirt path, hand in hand, dust clinging to their boots like sorrow clings to the heart. The first was a girl of 6, dark hair tied in uneven strands, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. Beside her, a boy no older than 4, cheeks streaked with dried tears, clutching at her dress as if she were both sister and shield. They came to him like messengers of fate, too young to be carrying words so heavy. Their voices were soft, trembling with the weight of what they bore. "Sir, it's our mama's last day alive. She said you might help." Eric stood at his porch, calloused hands gripping the railing, his chest tightening at the sound. He had lived years behind walls of silence, but those words pierced through as though they were arrows aimed at the marrow of his being. He had not asked for them, nor for the story their eyes carried. Yet he knew in that moment that something inside him had shifted, and there would be no return to the stillness that once was. He knelt to meet them, rough features softening as he looked into their eyes. What kind of mother, he wondered, would send her children with words of farewell? A woman with nothing left to lose, or one who carried so much love she could not bear to see it vanish unguarded? Without another thought, Eric took their hands and led them inside, his heart beating with a rhythm unfamiliar, a rhythm that spoke of responsibility and fear, of something that could not be turned away. In the back room of that small cabin lay Elena, their mama. She was 33, her body frail as though the years had carved into her too deeply. Yet her face still carried a beauty that sorrow could not erase, a quiet dignity etched into her eyes. Her breath came in shallow waves, skin pale, lips parted as if every word cost her a piece of life. She looked at Eric when he entered, and for a moment the silence between them said more than words could. She did not ask for pity, only for the safety of her children. "Forgive me for burdening you," her eyes seemed to say, "but they are all I have." Eric had faced storms, droughts, and losses that would hollow out a man, but the sight of her stirred something he thought long dead. He pulled a chair to her side, rough hands folded awkwardly in his lap. He was a man of few words, and yet the quiet presence he offered carried more weight than promises spoken aloud. Ava clung to her mother's hand, while Ian pressed himself against Eric's leg, the trust of a child given without question. It unnerved him, how quickly they had folded him into their circle of need, as though fate had decided for him what place he must now take. The doctor came the next morning, a man whose eyes had long grown tired of watching life slip away. He examined Elena with care, but left Eric with words that chilled the air. "She may not last the night." The wounds were deep, the illness stronger still. Eric nodded, jaw clenched, refusing to let his fear show. But inside, something clawed at him, something that whispered he could not stand by and watch her fade as though she were nothing more than another season's passing. Days bled into nights, nights into days. The ranch that had once echoed with silence now carried the sounds of children's laughter, small feet padding across wooden floors, the creak of beds as they shifted restlessly in the dark. Eric found himself teaching Ian to whittle a piece of wood, the boy's tiny hands fumbling, eyes bright with determination. Ava, too, took her place in the rhythm of the house, helping with cooking though her hands were small and unskilled. Elena watched from her bed, her face lit with faint smiles that spoke more than words ever could. In their laughter, Eric saw a life he had denied himself, a life he feared to want because wanting meant risking loss. But the past has a way of returning, cruel and unrelenting. One evening, as the sun sank low, a figure appeared at the edge of the property. A man Eric recognized, though he wished not to. It was the children's father, or what remained of the title. He had long abandoned Elena, leaving her to carry both scars and burdens alone. His voice carried mockery, his eyes sharp with disdain. You think you can save her? You think you can be their protector? Eric stood silent, fury simmering beneath the calm he forced upon himself. He had no wish for violence, but he knew cruelty when he saw it, and this man embodied it. Elena wept that night, her body racked with fever, whispering fears she had long kept hidden. She spoke of leaving her children in a world too cruel, of her heart breaking at the thought of them alone. Eric sat at her side, torn between helplessness and rage, his hand brushing hers gently, silently vowing he would not let them fall to such a fate. For the first time in years, he prayed, not for himself, but for her. He prayed that dawn would come and she would still be breathing, that her children would not know the weight of being orphans. The night stretched long, shadows moving like restless spirits against the walls. Elena's breaths grew weaker, each one sounding like it might be her last. Ava and Ian clung to her, their small bodies trembling with fear, while Eric sat helpless, heart breaking in silence. And then, as the lantern's flame flickered low, he realized he could not remain mute, not when time threatened to steal her from him forever. Words clawed their way up his throat, words he had buried deep, words he had long feared to speak. Leaning close, voice rough with emotion, he confessed the truth that had been building within him. I cannot lose you, Elena. You have become more than I ever thought I could deserve. I love you, not as a savior, not as a burden, but as the woman who has shown me what it means to feel again. His voice trembled, but his eyes held steady, fixed on hers with a fierceness that spoke of promises unspoken. Her tears fell then, sliding down pale cheeks as her hand found his. She whispered back, her voice faint yet steady, that she never thought she would be loved again, not whole, not true, not without condition. To be seen not as broken, but as brave. It broke her heart open in ways she had long thought impossible. She wept not from sorrow, but from the weight of being loved when she had thought love would never again find her. The night did not claim her. Against all odds, dawn crept across the horizon, soft light spilling into the room as though hope itself had returned. The doctor came once more, astonished to find her still breathing, her strength fragile but present. It was no miracle of medicine, but of spirit, of love that refused to let her go. Eric stood at the doorway, watching the children run into the morning sun, laughter ringing across the land like a hymn, his heart fuller than it had ever been. For the first time in years, he did not feel alone. He felt the pulse of a family, fragile but real, a life worth living and protecting. The prairie stretched endless before him, golden and vast, yet for the first time, he felt it no longer empty. He knew now that love did not come with thunder or blaze, but in the quiet persistence of kindness, in the strength of holding on when all else told you to let go. And in that truth, he found his place, not as a lonely rancher, but as a man who had chosen to love and been loved in return. Before you ride off, tell me where in the wide world you're watching from.